Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, my apologies, no webcam today. I'm still having some issues with my webcam, and on top of that I look absolutely awful. Yeah, I'm just ill and probably will sound congested as well in this video, so please accept my apologies for that. But we do need to talk about Knull. So the deep dive is up. I will leave a link to the full deep dive in the video description. In case of Knull, we actually didn't get to see all of his abilities. We kind of got the general gist. So let's start with everything that we do know. He has 40% degeneration resistance and 60% bleed and poison resistance, which I kind of really do like, which means that by default he's going to be quite friendly to be run with recoil, liquid courage, double edge. He also has a bit of a healing abilities in his base kit. And, 40% degeneration resistance. Kind of wish it was more, but still, a bit less degen damage. Why not? Every 10 hits in the opponent's combo meter, inflict an indefinite darkness passive, lowering combat power rate by 15%. This is purely pretty much a defensive ability, because typically when you're going to be using Knull, opponent's not going to have 10 hits in their combo meter. So this is Knull the Defender that puts on the darkness passive on you and reduces your combat power rate, but you can get rid of some of them by using special attacks. But he, by the looks of it, will be quite annoying on defense as well. Let's move on further. He has two different types of attacks: Symbiote attacks and Necrosword attacks. Symbiote attacks are mediums, heavies, and special ones. Symbiote attacks passively gain through accuracy, ignoring all the weight and auto block effects. So that's kind of like what Strife has. I believe Strife also has done mediums, heavies, and specials, or some special hits anyways. While the opponent is not corrupted, landing a hit or striking into the block has a 75% chance to inflict an indefinite living abyss debuff, removing one armor buff. Those living abyss debuffs are also kind of your currency that you will be converting into armor breaks and so on and so forth. While the opponent is corrupted, consume 3 armor break debuffs to inflict 3 living abyss debuffs. Regenerate 10% of the hit damage and inflict a degeneration debuff, dealing 2800 direct damage over 2 seconds. This ability does not trigger when using the medium 1 attack, so you have better control over it, which is, fair play. And then we have Necrosword attacks. It's light attacks and special too. Pause the duration of the opponent's corruption for 1.25 seconds, which is very important because you want opponent to be corrupted. While the opponent is corrupted, inflict an instant bleed damage, dealing 65% of hit damage as direct damage. But keep in mind, it's still going to be instant bleed damage, so it's kind of like a Nightcrawler. If opponent's bleed immune, it will do nothing. But still, that is not also damage over time effect, which is kind of useful at times. So there is that. We can see that special 1 on activation inflict an encroaching corruption lasting for 10 seconds. Upon expiry, inflict corruption for 10 seconds. And while fighting as a defender, encroaching corruption will not inflict corruption while the attacker is performing a special attack. So it's kind of same with encroaching stun with Quake, when the aftershocks are about to expire. Ideally, obviously, you still don't want to have to play to that, but it does seem that he will be quite annoying defender. It really does seem that he's going to be quite annoying. And special 2, inflict an armor break debuffs, reducing armor rating by 244 for 10 seconds. And here is also the corruption itself, which inflicts more of those armor breaks. So Knull inflicts corruption on his opponent using his special attacks, causing the following effects. The opponent's armor break debuffs are paused. On activation, convert all indefinite living abyss debuffs on the opponent into armor break debuffs that lower armor rating by 244. For each armor up effect on the opponent, inflict another armor break debuff. The opponent suffers 3.25% current combat power rate for each armor break debuff. And the opponent passively suffers from reverse controls, which, is excellent if you want to be fighting against him, because obviously reverse controls do nothing to the AI. They only mess with us. It's similar like Taunt. Taunt doesn't do anything to us. We don't get an overwhelming urge to throw a special attack, but it does affect the AI. So this is kind of like other way around. So that's another defensive annoyance. So he's gonna have, you know, combat power rate reduction. He's gonna have annoying way how not to get corrupted, and you know, the reverse controls and all that other stuff. So yeah, sounds quite interesting. And we don't really see what the level 3 does, but it basically just activates corruption and something. I think longer duration corruption, something. Signature ability. At the start of each fight, inflict +1 living abyss debuffs on the opponent for every 13 signature levels obtained, max 15, so you can start the fight with up to 15 debuffs on opponent, which is actually kind of cool. I do like that. When corruption activates, gain an unstoppable and unblockable buff for 2 seconds. You know, it's nothing too major, to be honest. 2 seconds is kind of meh. While corruption is active and the opponent has 50% health or less, when they would gain a regeneration effect, replace it with Knull's degeneration debuff. So this is kind of situational, but it can be helpful on offense and or defense as well, I guess, at times. Either way, those are his abilities. So what do I think about his abilities? We're going to get to the synergies in a moment. What do you think of his abilities? Unfortunately, from what I have seen, keep in mind, these are the pictures of rank 3 or rank 4 6-star in Labyrinth of Legends. And I do know that, you know, Red Hulk is chunkier boy than normal, but he only has one charge here active. And critical hits don't really get affected by Red Hulk's physical resistance. The fact that you crit for 28,000 on like a final hit of a level 2 with 52 armor breaks, I think kind of shows that those armor breaks are relatively weak. You can see here as well, 32 armor breaks, some level 1 hits that are critting for like 3k. Here we have, you know, just an average ass void. We have 22 armor breaks, and you're like, what, doing 2k hits? 30 armor breaks. It's like 13k that. And that's a level 2, kind of like the damage hit of the level 2. I don't know. I generally don't know. I saw plenty of annoying things for defense, because, you know, everybody hates encroaching stun node. And this would be like not necessarily encroaching stun, but encroaching reverse controls. You know, it's not as devastating, but still annoying. And then he's going to be reducing your combat power rate when you fight off against him, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I think he's going to be mildly annoying as a defender, or maybe quite annoying as a defender. Do I see much use for him on offense? Well, there are things that I do like. I like the fact that he's suicide friendly. I like the fact that he might be the very first cosmic champion that doesn't rely on any buffs that we have received in the last several years. He really doesn't. Like, he doesn't need to get any buffs, and that's very atypical of a cosmic champion. Have I seen enough to be convinced that he's going to be good? Definitely not. I am quite worried, to be honest. Those 244 strength armor breaks, quite pathetically weak. And, you know, with no other damage multipliers on his side, you know, he doesn't have any buffs, but, you know, he doesn't either have any passive furies, passive cruelties, passive precisions, none of that stuff. He just have the armor breaks to kind of increase his damage. And those armor breaks don't seem to be too juicy either. Yeah, I kind of get the feeling that Kabam regrets giving as potent armor breaks to Cosmic Ghost Rider. And they are like taking it out on Knull. I don't know. Well, how do I then see? It's obviously impossible to jump to any kind of final conclusions here. But at the same time, I'm not sold on this champion much. 52 armor breaks, 28. I'm Well, maybe. Who knows? Either way, let's take a look at the synergies. Because, you know, half of the hype about Knull was in the synergies. And unfortunately, as if it couldn't get any... the hype was not justified. The synergies are shit, not to mention that almost all of them are solo synergies that only affect Knull. So Knull is not the Professor X or Apocalypse or whatever for symbiotes. He, in fact, hardly helps them. This is the only synergy that's like, you know, for other champions and symbiotes, where all champions except Knull gain plus 2% modified attack rating for each of Knull's active synergy bonuses. Symbiotes gain double. That means you can get, what, up to 20%? Or maybe, well, 20-some% on symbiotes. So, you know, it's neat. And also, all symbiotes except Knull, once per fight, Knull possesses his symbiote teammate when they would be knocked out, gaining an indestructible and fury buff, granting plus 50% attack rating for 10 seconds. When the indestructible buff expires, deal 5% of max health as direct damage to the teammate. It's fine, you know, it's a bit better version of Heimdall for symbiotes, I guess, you know. It's neat. Will it be game changer? Probably not. Yeah, I doubt it. And then every other synergy is unique solo synergy that only affects Knull, and on top of that, all of them are fairly shit. So here we have when opponent is immune to an effect, Knull gains a fury buff. Cool. And then we have Knull gain an unblockable buff during his special attacks. Nice. When the opponent is suffering from 12 or more armor break, Knull gains an indefinite energized debuff, increasing combat power rate by 15%. You know, again, neat. Knull plus 15% attack rating while opponent is corrupted. You know. Okay. The synergies are shit. Like, honestly, they're shit. They're not good. And there we go. That's Knull. Was I more excited about Knull before I watched his deep dive? 100%. 100%. Do I still want to pay attention and see how he's going to turn out? And do I think that there is some possible scenario that he's going to be, you know, good valued addition to the game? Yeah. Yeah, I do. You know, deep dives can be somewhat misleading. It has happened in the past. And until we have more gameplay, more testing done, you can never be sure. But I am sure about the fact that based on everything that I have seen so far, I'm not happy. I'm definitely not blown away. And I'm quite worried. Because obviously he was super hyped character. Was going to be the savior of symbiotes, but synergies seem shit. Utility, I guess, is alright, but for what? Like, what are you gonna do with this champion? Realistically, will you gonna use Knull for map 7? What parts? Alliance War, where? Act 7? Which of the variants he would carry? You know? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, you know, we don't have another sentry. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the